Well, good afternoon. Welcome. Welcome to SAML Do's and Don'ts. We're going to talk about the difference between authentication and integration. I'm going to just very briefly go over the different methods of authentication that we support with our web-based product, LaserUp Anywhere. And then I'm going to talk specifically about SAML and some ways that it makes sense and some that it doesn't. So authentication versus integration. When we first released our SAML integration, I shouldn't say that, our SAML build, we literally got a phone call where somebody said, okay, I want to build an integration with LaserUp Anywhere. And we said, that's great. We've been trying to get you to do it. Let's do it. They said, okay, I want to do SAML. I said, well, that's part of it, but that's not all of it. When we talk about integration, we're talking at least at the floor with contact data. That's 180 fields of information about the client, their name, their address, all of those pieces of information. And those 180 fields are going to save reps and advisors a heck of a lot more time than a 10-character password. So we don't want to just get them into Anywhere and then leave them with a blank page that has no information, even though it's already been captured inside another system. We want to make sure that the first priority is not authentication, but is integration, getting the data that's already been captured into LaserApp. We also have the ability to send forms data. So if you already know what forms this advisor needs to fill out, we want you to send that information to us. That's a strong integration that reduces not in good order and helps make everybody's life faster, better, easier. Integration coming from the launching party. So where LaserApp fits in this process is we're not at the beginning. People think, well, I'm going to come from my portal and I'm going to go to you, LaserApp. Well, the problem is we don't have the client data if you do it that way. So coming back to this common data model, it can be a CRM, it can be an account opening system. We don't care what it is, but that really comes before us. So people who say, I'm going to start at my portal, I'm going to go to you, we've kind of missed a step there. And we want to make sure that the data flow captures all those pieces. A CRM, an account opening system, something that's going to take in that information, that's designed to take in that information, save it, and then bring over to LaserUp Anywhere. And then at that point, we do authentication. Obviously, it's important that we know that this person is who we're talking about, that we're dealing with the advisor. LaserUp Anywhere has multiple authentication methods. Now, I left one completely off this slide. We have what's called the API method. I call it full automation mode. Earlier, Chris was talking about it. He called it the server mode. I apologize that there's so many different ways to talk about it, but there's that many ways to think about it. And what it is it's a drop-in when you have an account opening system that fully automates the process. You send us all the forms they're ever going to open. You're not going to add any more forms. You send us all the contact data, and they're not going to change it inside LaserUp Anywhere. And then we don't have to do the same level of authentication because we're not going to actually pick out who the advisor is. It's really more of a company account. You as the providing party have said, when I'm coming in this fully automated way, I'm going to tell you you should let them in. I'm going to give you all the data. I'm going to give you all the forms. When you're in that model, you're not having configuration and works in progress saved, so we don't need to find out who you are. We just have to find out what company you're with. So today I'm going to be talking more about the more independent model where there is an actual user profile, and the basic is always username and password. It's been around as long as the internet has. It works really well. We've gotten this far in the internet age with a lot of usernames and a lot of passwords, and as much as we may not like trying to remember them, it's a really good way to make sure that when I say I'm coming into LaserUp Anywhere as tom@laserup.com, that I am in fact Tom. For ease of use, we offered very early in LaserUp Anywhere delegated login. So what this means is that the launching party is taking the password from the user, storing it in a secure encrypted way, decrypting it at the time of launch, and then passing it to us over a secure channel. And as long as the launching party is pretty much consistent for this person, it works really well. It gets the password to us, it looks seamless to the user, and really the only hiccup is when the user goes and changes their password, they get a message that says, hey, you got to go and change it in the other system. We try to make that also as seamless and easy as possible. And so the delegated sign-on handles the need of, I don't want to have to type my password every time. Now obviously SAML is a big buzzword. People want to integrate their systems all together into a uniform platform, and SAML can take care of that. Now, I want to take a quick poll. Who's heard of SAML? Before you heard that I was presenting, just heard it in the industry, lots of hands. Who's using SAML in their company today? few less, but pretty good. Who's using SAML with LaserApp Anywhere today? I got one hand in the back. Excellent. All right. So he probably already knows. You want to take over? No. Okay. All right. I'll take it for now. So obviously, this is a newer release for us. We have companies who are trying it out. I think we have one company who's actually rolled it to production. But this is, obviously newer for us, and it's coming along. And okay, one more question. Does anybody know what SAML stands for? Go for it. Yeah. Security Assertion Markup Language. So lots of these acronyms all end in ML. It's the same in HTML, it's the same in XML, and it's the same in SAML. Markup language really just means that it's human readable. If you were to open up a SAML message or an XML message or an HTML page, it's going to be words, it's going to be some characters that are formatting, but for the most part, it's not going to be ones and zeros like you would find if you were to open up an exe file. That's just, it's like your computer barfed at you. This is human readable, and SAML is specifically about making a security assertion. So I'm going to make some assertions today. I assert that I am Tom Cordova-Caddes. I assert that I am a software engineer at LaserApp. I assert that I am giving the presentation today. And you believe me, because they haven't come and given me the hook and pulled me out here. So you believe that I am in fact who I say and that I'm giving the presentation today. And what we're talking about here is making those types of assertions, that I am who I say I am, in a way that two computer systems can understand and believe each other. I put up there in quotes directly from Oasis. So they are an independent party who puts together standards that we have adopted and that people across the industry have adopted. An XML-based framework for communicating user authentication, entitlement and attribute information. Now that's interesting. The standard is actually much larger than what really anybody is using it for. SAML is capable of not only telling you that I am Tom at laserapp.com, but also that I am a father, that I have 2 kids, that this is my bank account, all that stuff. And for whatever reason, the industry has decided not to go that way with it. So in LaserApp Anywhere, you set up the user first. You tell us that you are an assistant or you are a rep, that you are with this company, that you are at this office, that you work with these people. That's all done up front and can be done with our web service module, which is a different thing that we've introduced recently. All that we're using SAML for is authentication. Now that I have a profile within LaserApp Anywhere for Tom, how do I know that this is in fact Tom? It's an open standard, provides robust single sign-on capability. That's pretty much just jargon, but it is. It's robust. I liken it to, it's kind of a, I lost the word. It's a jackhammer trying to knock in a nail. It can be a very heavyweight framework, but if you have that heavyweight framework already implemented within your organization, it can definitely knock in that nail. And it can do it for all the nails that you have in your company. What is it not? Well, I sort of already hit on this. It's not a link from your company portal, because we would get to LaserApp Anywhere and we wouldn't have the data. So it's not just that. It's not a way to control user access. You actually have a way within LaserApp Anywhere to go and say, I suspend this user. They're no longer allowed to get in. And so just being able to control them at the SAML level isn't as effective as actually being able to turn people off. You can also delete users, but you can also suspend if you have some reason that you just want to deny access. This is not the answer for that. It's not a way to save users from setting their own passwords. Passwords are going to be around with us, and what we really should be looking at is what is the holistic view of keeping this information secure and accessible when it should be. Trust. For me, this is like the buzzword of this conference. We heard it on day 1 with the keynote speaker, and we just heard it from Rocky. He was talking about trust in a different context, but I think trust is the word that I keep hearing, keeps coming up. And this is what it's all about with SAML. Can we trust that this is a person who they say they are? So in advance, you are going to tell us, okay, I'm ready. I've got everything in place. I want to go with SAML, and we are going to put a configuration inside LaserApp Anywhere that says this is the server that has the authority to tell me who this user is. We're going to exchange keys. Everybody keeps the private key, that's why it's private, but we're going to give you the public key. And you're going to know that anytime you get a message from us that's encrypted, if you decrypt it with a public key, it had to come from the private key, and vice versa. When you send us a message, you always encrypt it with a private key. When we decrypt it with a public key, we can trust that that message came from you. Everything is encrypted in transmission. And here's a point I want to make. You know, one of the opportunities that arises with SAML is to actually increase security. So imagine that you have a castle and it has 4 gates, and you've got, you know, a security force. You can put a couple guards at each gate, and all of a sudden you wall those off. You can put all the guards at the front gate. So big players in sort of the larger industry, Google, Apple, some other companies, are looking into multi-factor authentication. Not only a password that you know, but something else. Maybe you always come from the same IP addresses, and when you don't, we send a code to your phone and you type it in. A set of codes that we give you in advance, and you should hold on to those in a private way. There's an opportunity with SAML because we won't have users logging in 5, 6, 7 times to get at all their services to increase security at that one access point. And that's, you know, sort of a take-home I'd like to take with you. If you're going to go this route, if they're only going to log in once, let's make sure it's secure. Because if there's a breach at that one point, we're going to be giving access to all the clients in their CRM, all the works in progress in Anywhere, all the data that's in the imaging system. So that one access point should be more secure than what we had before. And that's where we get to the identity provider. This is something that you bring to the table when you're going to implement SAML with LaserApp Anywhere. It's the identity source for the company. So LaserApp Anywhere does not allow mixed authentication. If your company is going to go SAML, every user in the organization is going to do SAML with the little asterisk. Your admin users have a separate login process, and that has to do with their interface with LaserApp Anywhere. But all of your end users, your reps, your assistants, are all going to go through the same identity provider. You host it, or you can outsource it, but you want to make sure that you can trust that person because you're giving them the keys to the kingdom. They're going to decide if, in fact, this rep is who he says he is, and we need for them to do a really good job of making sure that that is, in fact, the case. Here's where your company portal can come back in. You know, if you have a site that is is distributing access for perhaps a CRM that you provide, or, you know, some other system, maybe it becomes the login to the document imaging, that still can be wrapped around the identity provider because you can give access to all of the different services that they should have once they've logged into the IDP. The other side is the service provider. So LaserApp Anywhere is the service provider. We are providing the software that they will gain access to. And our role as a service provider is very specific. Once you bring on an IDP that's separate, we stop being an authentication source. We are not responsible for making sure that this is tom@laserapp.com because you've told us it's no longer your job, it's somebody else's job. It's the IDP's job to do that authentication. Our job is to listen to the IDP and give access to the software. The service provider sends an authentication request to the identity provider. So the way that it works is anywhere that we are in the chain, we're going to determine that this is one of your users. We are going to send a request to the identity provider and say, is this really who they say they are? And that's the way that this can work at any point in the larger data flow. So there's really 2 scenarios that come out. Either they've already logged in when they get to us, or they haven't. And by doing the identity provider service provider model, either of these are accomplished in the same way. We're kind of funneling all of the workflows into the same spot, which is if they start from your portal, and let's say for the sake of argument that you have implemented a CRM that you give access to, they log in to your website, they click on a link that gives them a SAML assertion to log into the CRM. The CRM sends data to LaserApp Anywhere, and at that point, we determine that they need to be logged in with LaserApp Anywhere. That's the time that we send a message to the IDP. We say, IDP, is this in fact tom@laserapp.com? And they can say, yes. He logged in this morning. I know exactly who he is. You can trust, because I'm the authority, that this is Tom. If that's not the scenario, if they start in the CRM and they send the message over to LaserApp Anywhere, there's no problem, because we're going to send the same message to the IDP. Is this Tom? Well, I don't know. Tom hasn't told me that he's here today. The IDP can then present the message, the login page, the additional authentication, find out, is this Tom, and then send the assertion. So the assertion comes and says, this is in fact Tom, you can let him into LaserApp Anywhere. So regardless of what pieces you have in your larger data flow, SAML isn't going to get in the way, but at the same point, it's separated. It's not you launching anywhere with SAML, it's SAML is taking the place of authentication wherever they come from. Who is SAML right for? Well, it's going to be companies who have already taken care of integration. If you're still looking at how am I going to get data into LaserApp Anywhere, I want you to use your resources doing that, because those 180 fields that they're not going to have to rekey is much more effective than the 10, 12, 15 character password that they have to type in maybe once in the morning, maybe once right before lunch and once in the evening. It's not that big of a hurdle. What is a big hurdle is having to keep keying in that customer data. Companies who have a large number of services. So if you're going to take this jackhammer, you want to knock in more than one nail. You want to be able to get them access to some type of CRM or other client host data warehouse, maybe an imaging system on the back end, maybe whatever the pieces in your chain are. Maybe you have a server that captures the data before you send it out for signature. You want all of those to integrate with SAML so that you're getting the benefit of all these different services, not having to ask for a password, rather than just implementing it for LaserApp Anywhere. And IDPs, they're complicated servers. You're going to need developers, you're going to need IT staff, or you're going to need to outsource, and you're going to need to spend the due diligence to make sure that that's a trustworthy source, because as I said, you're giving them the keys to the kingdom. All right, questions? Either answered it all or I answered nothing. Left you with nothing to ask, nothing to say. Correct.
Have you ever heard from any clients that want LaserApp to serve as the identity provider?
Not once we get deep into the discussion. Because we sit in the middle of the process, we're not a really good fit. I think people would be confused if you, let's say, you tried to go to your CRM and the first thing that popped up was a LaserApp login. I think people might go, well, wait, I'm not ready for that. But primarily people who are implementing this are doing it as though it was their company website. So, IDPs exist. We know that, you could hire out, but a lot of people right now are doing it themselves. There are frameworks. I mean, we can suggest a framework that we think is really good and works really well, but that doesn't mean that there aren't other frameworks that are really good and work well with what we've implemented. So, sure.
So is there a use case there to SSO into DocuSign instead of having to enter the credentials?
That would be a question for DocuSign. We would be happy to pass them the envelope without a DocuSign credential if they told us, don't pass on the credential because we are going to use SAML as our authentication. We have built basically the delegated sign-on that we allow from CRMs and account opening systems. We have built to DocuSign, EchoSign, Solanas, all of them. We're passing them credentials now, and we'd be happy if they told us now's the time to just say, here's an envelope, go send them to their IDP. I haven't heard that that's something they're looking into, but you should definitely ask them and then tell me what they say. Yeah. Okay. Was that a hand in the back? No? All right. Then I will thank you for coming and say I'll see you the rest of the afternoon.